Hi guys, and welcome to the group test of 5KZ earphones. Which will be the ones to rule them all? Let's dive in and see. For some of you that may not be familiar with KZ or Knowledge Zenith, it is a young Chinese brand that offers good sounding earphones on a budget. Now, I must say that historically I was not a big fan of the brand. And if you ask why, it's because they were often too analytical and too bright sounding for my taste. But today I have 5 different models in a hope to find the one worth praising. That said, let's see what we have here. From left to right there's ES4, ZSA, ZSN, ZS10 and ZS6. And this is also a rough order of their prices. As you can see, they're all pretty much dirt cheap compared to any Sennheisers, Bayer Dynamics, etc. But don't let this low price turn you away. Just bear with me a little bit longer, and when we're done talking about these, I'll bring in SoundMAGIC E10s and Sennheiser CX300 to face the winner of this group. First, we have ES4 model here. And these are meant for bass and V-shaped sound lovers. The bass hits hard and deep. Mids are quite recessed and highs are pronounced, which will provide a fun sound, but vocals will be thin and bright. Good thing is it's not bloated and muddled mess you would typically expect from such a cheap earphones. On the contrary, bass is blown up, but it's reasonably controlled and fast. And overall clarity and soundstage separation is pretty good with these ones. Better than, let's say, SoundMAGIC E10s or Sennheiser CX300 that I mentioned before. And both of them are much pricier models. Now, playing with EQ a little bit can help bring the brightness or the bass down, but it just can't make vocals sound full and lifelike. So overall, I would say these are very nice, clean and punchy sound for bass heads, but not so much for someone who would like to hear a natural sounding vocals and instruments. Next in the line are ZSAs, and they're somewhat different. First thing you'll notice is that they're smaller in size and finished in metal, which is quite nice, and I liked that part. Sound-wise, the overall clarity, separation and soundstage are comparable to ES4, meaning they're quite good but can still get overwhelmed by busy tracks. The frequency balance is also a bit different. The bass is deep and present, but it's not overwhelming in any way. But the lack of mid-range strikes again, and mids lack juice and fluidity, while highs are even more pronounced, making these very bright and dry sounding to my ear. If any one of you heard ZS5, they have very similar balance. And let me tell you, I don't like it at all. Nothing sounds like this in the real world. People are not hissing snakes, so they shouldn't sound like that. And if I use EQ to lower highs, I can get rid of that brightness, and that's okay. But mids and vocals still sound kind of lifeless, dry and tiny. And I don't really enjoy listening to my music through them. Next, we have ZSN here. Now, this is an interesting beast. It's usually just $1 or $2 more expensive than these two, But in terms of clarity, soundstage and instrument separation, they are on the next level. And these two just can't compare because ZSN can resolve busier tracks with ease and make sense in situations where these would simply sound muffled. Now, ZSN has quite neutral bass line that's not too strong or too weak. It's very decent. And which is even more surprising, decent mid-range too, which is more fluid and juicier than I ever heard on any KZ model before. Vocals are more physically present and not just some tiny squeaky things in the background. That said, they are still on the analytical side of things and not as full as you can hear on Sennheisers, for example. It's not that type of sound. Highs are clean and clear, but separation is great, but there is a strong emphasis on the higher register. And you know how that actually sounds? It sounds like somebody turned strong lights, but try to imagine these being acoustic strong lights. So everything sounds very pronounced and bright. And you can hear background noise of the recording all the time, and you're always aware that microphone is on even when no one is singing. You can just hear it's being turned on, picking up some tiny background noise. And that may impress you at first, but it's unrealistic. It's like using a football field lighting in your home or in a coffee shop. Yeah, sure, it's bright and you can sure see everything clearly, but it's just not natural and you can't relax under that kind of light. Fortunately enough, when I applied some simple EQ to these, what I was left with was a pretty good and natural sound. You still have that great separation and clarity with instruments being separated nicely from each other, deep but not overwhelming bass, decently neutral mids, and highs that are still clear but not overpowering this time after EQing them. And I really enjoyed using them this way. Now, going past the sound, they are finished with some aluminum details on the back, have some fancy grills in the front, and overall look and feel is much more premium than the price would suggest. Also, they're the only one in the group that are coming with a new reimagined cable that I will quickly show you. It's like a typical KZ cable, but this time the part that goes around your ear is factory pre-shaped. You don't have to do that yourself. And it's soft, so it's very easy to mount and use, and I like it much better than their traditional cable, which had like rigid hard line inside and you could change that for yourself, but in reality that was a little bit annoying to use, at least for me. This one is much more practical and useful. Now let's get to the next ones, the ZS10s, which are again plasticky, same as ES4, but even more bulkier. I don't know, can you actually see that here, but they're even more bulkier than ES4. And you should be aware of that because they might not fit your ear properly. I had some trouble securing them in place, and just be aware of that. Sound-wise, they're actually very similar sounding to great ZSNs, You have good bass control, decent amount of mids, but this time highs are not that overwhelming right out of the box. So without using EQ, these are probably the most neutral sounding of them all. But I really do feel that ZSNs have the slight advantage in overall clarity and liveliness of the sound. And when mentioned EQ is applied to solve theirs overly forward highs, I keep preferring these to ZS10s. And at last we have ZS6 here, which are very clear and clean sounding pair of earphones with really good separation, which puts them in this right group from ZSN to here. These are much cleaner headphones than the first two. I feel that they pull ahead slightly in front of ZS10 in that regard, completely matching ZSNs. But their overall balance is again similar to ZSA actually. So that means mids are too thin and highs are too bright. And playing with EQ, I could fix some of that, but I still couldn't make vocals sound full and juicy. And while I do respect there's great separation and organization compared to ZSA or ES4, no vocal or instrument in real world sounds this thin and this dry, and that's all I have to say about that. Also, they're very nicely built and they belong to this smaller group of headphones like ZSA and ZSN, so they can fit nicely in any ear, I suppose. But the same is true for ZSNs here, and they also sound more natural and cost less. So honestly, I can't see any real reason to ever recommend these over ZSNs. So let's sum it up. Judging by the clarity and sound stage, these three are in the class of their own, while these two can sometimes sound muffled and cluttered in comparison. But looking at the overall sound balance, these two are actually very thin and dry sounding, and I just can't recommend them to anyone unless you actually enjoy dry and artificially high-pitched sounds. Well, if that's your thing, I'm not here to judge, but for the rest of you, these are better avoided, so I'll just move them out of the picture for now. Now, what we have left here are two bulky and plasticky models, ES4 and ZS10. First, the fun V-shaped sounding ES4 for bass heads, and this might not be my cup of tea, but I wouldn't blame you if you go for it. I know many people prefer some extra sauce and added flavor to their sound, but they are kind of a bulky, and just have that in mind while choosing. Next, we have even bulkier ZS10 here, so really, again, be very aware of that if you have small ears. That said, they sound much cleaner than ES4, and they're better balanced too, and they're probably providing the most natural sound out of the box of all these earphones today. So this is a really nice sounding pair that could have won today. But it didn't because of the ZSNs. The smaller ones, the metal premium feel finish ones, and also cheaper ones. They're matching and even maybe slightly surpassing ZS10s in overall clarity and presence. And emphasized highs are easy to fix, and these were the biggest surprise for me today. I actually like them so much that I'll be keeping them for myself and trying them with some better cables soon. Now, because of these, I will probably get rid of my old SoundMAGICs, SoundMAGIC E10s that I used until now. In comparison, they sound bloated, muffled, and not as present as ZSNs. And same goes for old but legendary Sennheiser's CX300s that I have for a very long time. Sennheisers traditionally have heavenly full and silky vocals, but other than that, they're a bloated and cluttered mess compared to ZSN. They cost me $35 and $60 in its time, and I felt when I bought both of these that I did a good purchase, and I was very happy with them for a long time. But today, they were completely outmatched by a healthy margin by these $15 KZ ZSNs. What else can I say? It's a good time to be an earphone buyer on a budget, so enjoy it. And if you like my reviews, feel free to share them or click subscribe so I can bring even more of them. Until next time.